This video is about the mom sat inside the aquarium and a billionaire handed her an umbrella. If this story touches your heart, please mention where you are watching from in the comments. Please like the video and share your thoughts in comments. The gentle hum of the aquarium enveloped Claire as she sat on a worn wooden bench, her gaze tracing the graceful movements of a stingray gliding over the coral below. She had come to this sanctuary, not just for the exquisite marine life, but to escape the chaos of her life outside. Her brown hair, pulled back into a loose bun, had strands that escaped and framed her face like delicate seaweed. Today was supposed to be a day of solace, a moment to breathe amidst the swirl of her responsibilities as a single mother. Her 5-year-old son, Leo, was exploring a nearby exhibit, eyes wide with wonder as he pressed his nose against the glass. The sunlight streamed through the water, casting ethereal patterns on his small frame, making him look like a tiny, enchanted creature himself. Claire felt a twinge of warmth as she watched him. His laughter sounded like music, pure and untainted. Yet, as she observed Leo, a thought gnawed at her ex-husband's voice echoing in her mind like a stubborn echo. "You can't do this alone, Claire. You are not equipped for motherhood." The weight of those words had lingered with her long after their marriage had ended, seeping into her self-doubt like ink on a blank page. She quickly shook off the feeling, focusing instead on the joy that Leo radiated, pushing aside the shadows of insecurity that threatened to cloud her day. But as fate would have it, the peaceful moment was soon disrupted. A sudden downpour began outside, the sound of rain crashing against the aquarium's glass dome, sending a symphony of droplets cascading down the walls. Claire frowned. They had planned to walk home after this. Rain would mean chaos, wet clothes, and a cranky Leo. Just then, the sound of a low chuckle caught her attention. She turned her head slightly, and there he was, a tall figure in an impeccably tailored coat, an umbrella in his hand, the epitome of casual elegance. His striking blue eyes locked onto hers, and in that moment everything else faded into the background. "Seems like you re-stuck here for a while," he said, a teasing smile playing on his lips. "I could offer you an umbrella, but I can guarantee it won't turn into a sail in this wind." Claire raised a brow, caught off guard by his confidence and charm. "And why would you assume I wouldn't enjoy the thrill of being drenched?" She countered, forcing a playful tone despite her heart racing. He stepped closer, the aroma of fresh rain and something warm cinnamon wafting around him. "I suppose it depends on who you read with. Grumpy wet children can be less than thrilling." "Touch," Claire replied, suppressing a smirk. She couldn't help but admire how the rain seemed to enhance his allure, framing his angular features like a portrait illuminated by soft light. "May I?" He gestured with the umbrella, which was folded neatly under his arm. Claire hesitated for a moment, torn between the desire to maintain her independence and the undeniable charm radiating from the stranger. "You don't even know my name. And yet, here we are in a rainstorm. I am Julian, by the way." He extended his hand, and Claire took it, her pulse quickening at the brief contact. Claire. The name felt almost foreign on her tongue, as if it belonged to someone else, someone who wasn't a single mother burdened by doubts. "Pleasure to meet you, Claire." He released her hand slowly, leaving behind a flicker of warmth. "So, are you here on a school field trip or for the sheer joy of watching fish swim?" "It's just a quiet day with my son," she replied, her heart softening as she glanced at Leo, who was now mesmerized by a school of clownfish. "This place has a certain magic, doesn't it?" "It does. It is a wonderful escape." Julian's gaze followed hers, but then returned to meet hers with a glint of something unspoken, a connection, perhaps. "Yes, but it is even better when you are not alone." Claire's voice softened, the hint of vulnerability creeping in. She had become used to being alone, a habit that was hard to shake, but the sheer presence of Julian stirred something deep within her. "True, loneliness can be heavy," he replied, his eyes searching hers, as if trying to decipher a hidden truth. "Is it just you and Leo?" "Yes, his father." Claire hesitated, the words heavy on her tongue. "Isn't he in the picture anymore?" "Not really." Julian's brow furrowed for a moment, a flicker of empathy passing through his expression. "I am sorry to hear that. It must be difficult." "It is some days more than others." Claire swallowed hard, feeling her emotional walls inching upward. Who was this man, and why did he evoke such an urge to share her burdens with him? "Maybe we should get you two out of here before the rain turns into a monsoon." Julian's voice broke through her thoughts, a dash of humor returning to his demeanor. "And I promise not to let my umbrella turn into a sail." "Such a gentleman," Claire replied, feigning lightness. "How do I know you were not just some rogue billionaire trying to sweep me off my feet?" Julian laughed, a sound that was rich and genuine. "Fair enough, but I assure you, I am just a guy who had a long meeting and needed a break." "From what? The world of finance?" Claire shot back, intrigued. Something like that, but if you were going to make a wild guess, I'll let you think I am a spy or something. It would make for a better story, wouldn't it? She couldn't help but laugh, the sound bubbling up like air escaping from the depths of the ocean. A spy, ha, I suppose I could picture you scaling walls and cracking codes. Only the codes of the heart, he quipped, his gaze steady. Claire felt her cheeks warm slightly at his flirtation, but she quickly shook the feeling off. This was just a moment, a passing encounter. She didn't have time for distractions or dramatic turns of fate. And what do you know about my heart? She challenged, a playful yet cautious edge to her tone. Not much yet, but I am willing to learn. There was a sincerity in his eyes that made her heart skip a beat, the kind of intensity that made her question her resolve. All right, Mr. Spy, how do we get out of here? Follow my lead. Julian held the umbrella above their heads, the sleek black fabric a stark contrast against the bright colors of the aquarium. Okay, but don't blame me if Leo decides to sprint into the rain, Claire warned, glancing at her son, who was now lost in his own world, watching the jellyfish sway. I am up for a challenge, he replied, his smile broadening. Let us see how fast I can keep up. As they stepped outside, the rain pelted down with fervor. Claire felt a rush of exhilaration as Leo dashed forward, laughing, splashing through puddles. Julian was right behind her, umbrella held aloft, laughter mingling with the sound of the rain. They navigated through the downpour, Claire caught between exhilaration and the nagging sensation of hesitation. What was she doing? Was this just a brief encounter, or was there something more here? But as she glanced at Julian, who was effortlessly keeping pace with her, she felt the stirrings of something she hadn't allowed herself to consider a nearest possibility. The rain fell like a curtain of silver, transforming the world beyond the aquarium into a hazy, ethereal landscape. Claire found herself laughing alongside Leo, who twirled in the downpour, his laughter echoing like a buoyant melody. The joy radiating from him was infectious, and for a moment she let herself be swept away in the moment. Can you believe this? She called over the sound of the rain, her heart lighter than it had felt in months. It is like a scene from a movie. Julian was right beside her, holding the umbrella steady as they maneuvered around puddles. If this is a movie, I'd like to think it is a romantic comedy, he joked, glancing sideways at her, his blue eyes glistening with mischief. The kind where the lead female finds her way back to joy. Claire felt a flutter in her chest at his words, but she brushed it aside. You think I need rescuing? I am more of an independent heroine, she replied, a teasing lilt in her voice. Every heroine deserves a sidekick, don't you think? He countered, mirroring her playful tone. And I happen to be quite capable of dodging raindrops. She chuckled, a lightness in her heart that had felt buried under layers of responsibility. A sidekick, ha, you were probably just looking for a way to escape the rain. Or perhaps, he began, falling into step beside her as they approached the edge of the first puddle, I am looking for someone to share the adventure. He tilted his head, a playful challenge igniting in his eyes. Claire's pulse quickened again at the intensity of his gaze. You are quite the charmer, Julian. Is this how you win over all the single mothers you encounter? Only the ones who seem as if they could use a little laughter, he replied, his voice softer now, more intimate. I am not here to win anyone over, but I'd be lying if I said I enjoyed your company. Leo, oblivious to the tension building between the adults, splashed through a puddle, sending droplets flying everywhere. Mom, look at me, he shouted, his eyes gleaming with pure delight. Careful, Leo, Claire called out, simultaneously filled with affection and a touch of worry. She turned to Julian, lowering her voice. He has got an infectious spirit, doesn't he? Absolutely, Julian replied, watching Leo with a fond smile. He seems like a little adventurer in his own right. Yes, he is. He is always looking for the next big thing, Claire said, a hint of pride seeping through her words. But as she watched Leo, a sudden pang of protectiveness washed over her. Was it fair to expose him to someone like Julian, someone she barely knew? Is it just the two of you? Julian's question broke through her thoughts, pulling her back to the present. For now, yes, Claire replied cautiously. But I have to make sure I am doing right by him. I don't want to drag him into complicated situations. Complicated? Maybe it is just, what do you need some lightness in your life? He suggested gently, his tone encouraging. Imperfect moments can lead to the best memories. She hesitated, his words resonating with something deep within her, yet a weariness swirled through her heart. I am not sure I am ready for that, she admitted, vulnerability slipping into her voice. Julian's expression softened, the teasing glimmer replaced with sincerity. I get it, Claire. It is a leap of faith, but life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Ivy learned the hard way that surprises can lead to heartache, she said, her voice quieter now. Ivy spent enough time picking up the pieces. And not every surprise ends in heartbreak. Sometimes they lead us to unexpected joys, he replied, his sincerity palpable. Claire met his gaze, feeling the weight of unspoken trust hang between them. Are you always this philosophical? Or is it just the rain? She teased, trying to lighten the moment. It's just the rain, he grinned, and she couldn't help but smile back, the tension easing slightly. And maybe the company. Leo raced ahead again, his laughter ringing out against the backdrop of the rain. Come on, you two slowpokes, he called, his carefree spirit a stark reminder of the innocence and joy that still existed in her life. Okay, we're coming. Claire shouted back, her heart swelling at the sound of her son's delight. She turned to Julian, an uncertain smile crossing her lips. Looks like we're being summoned. Lead the way, fearless mother, he said, his eyes sparkling with a mixture of admiration and something deeper, something that made Claire's heart flutter again. They charged forward, Julian deftly avoiding puddles while Claire found herself laughing more freely than she had in ages. As they reached the corner of the street, the damper began to lighten, transforming the rain into a soft drizzle. Looks like we might just make it home dry, Julian said, tilting the umbrella so it could cover them both without making Leo feel left out. How about we grab some hot chocolate first? I know a great cafe nearby. Hot chocolate? Claire mused, the idea warming her from the inside. What is next? Ice skating on a whim? I am full of surprises, he said with a wink, and her heart skipped at his playful confidence. Okay, you've sold me on the hot chocolate, Claire conceded, her voice teasing. But don't you think I'll be persuaded to ice skate? Fair enough, he shrugged, a mock summer expression crossing his face. I guess I'll have to save that for my next adventure. As they walked, the atmosphere shifted subtly. The rain-soaked streets glistened, reflecting the soft glow of street lights, and Claire found herself caught in the moment, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Julian cleared his throat, the playful banter giving way to a more serious tone. Honestly, Claire, I know this is spontaneous, but I am really glad we met today. Claire's heart raced. There was a sincerity in his voice she hadn't expected. So am I, but this is more than just a chance encounter, isn't it? He paused, looking at her with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. It could be. I know life is complicated, but sometimes taking a leap of faith is worth it. Claire felt a rush of warmth spread through her. Could she allow herself to take that leap? Could she trust him, a man she had just met, to be a part of her life, even for a fleeting moment? Before she could respond, Leo tugged at her hand. Mom, can we hurry? I want hot chocolate too. The moment of intimacy shattered, and Claire glanced down at her son, then back at Julian. Red hot chocolate first, she said, shaking her head lightly as she led the way. As they continued walking, Claire's thoughts raced. Julian was charming, intelligent, and clearly cared about Leo's happiness. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling of caution that rose within her. How could she allow herself to explore this spark between them while still being a protective mother? Arriving at the cafe, the smell of cocoa filled the air, and they stepped inside, shaking off the remnants of the rain. Leo immediately darted to the counter, pointing eagerly at the oversized marshmallows. 2 hot chocolates, please, Claire ordered, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotion swirling within. Julian stood beside her, watching with a smile as Leo's excitement bubbled over. Coming right up, the barista replied, preparing their drinks with care. Leo, you have to tell me all about your favorite fish while we wait for our drinks, Julian encouraged, kneeling to Leo's level, his presence radiating warmth. Okay, the clownfish are the best, Leo exclaimed, his eyes lighting up as he animatedly described their orange and white stripes. Claire watched the scene unfold, her heart swelling. The connection between the two was instantaneous, effortless, and it made her heart ache with a mixture of joy and uncertainty. As Julian listened with genuine interest, Claire's thoughts drifted. She wondered if this unexpected stranger could fill the spaces left in her heart, or if the risk of opening up again was simply too great. Here you go. The barista placed steaming mugs in front of them, interrupting her contemplation. Enjoy. Thanks. Julian replied, taking one mug and handing it to Leo, who clutched it like a treasure. Claire took a sip, the warmth spreading through her, mingling with the electric tension in the air. So, what now, Mr. Spy? What is our next adventure? Julian leaned closer, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. I'll think of something, but I promise, it won't involve any lucky in shadows or climbing walls, just good company. Claire smiled, unable to hide a flutter of hope that blossomed in her chest. Perhaps this wasn't just a moment, but the beginning of something beautiful, something unexpected that could lead her back to joy. As they basked in the warmth of the cafe, as they settled into a cozy corner of the cafe, the rich aroma of chocolate enveloped them, wrapping Claire in a cocoon of warmth. Leo, oblivious to the world beyond his mug, took a generous sip and nearly erupted in delight, his face lighting up like the flickering candles adorning the tables. "Mom, this is the best hot chocolate ever," he exclaimed, his voice echoing through the cafe, drawing smiles from nearby patrons. Claire couldn't help but chuckle, her heart swelling with pride as she watched him savor the moment. "Glad to hear it, champ. I knew you do love it," she replied, her voice tinged with affection. She turned to Julian, who was watching Leo with an amused expression. "You read quite the influence, you know. He doesn't usually get this excited over hot cocoa." Julian raised an eyebrow, his mouth quirking into a playful grin. "What can I say? I have a knack for bringing out the joy in people, especially when it comes to sweet treats." Claire felt her cheeks warm at his compliment, and she took a sip of her own hot chocolate, allowing the rich flavor to wash over her nerves. "Sweet treats are a good place to start, I suppose," she replied, trying to keep her tone light. "Maybe we should make this a monthly tradition," he suggested, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed casually. "Hot chocolate and aquarium outings, what do you think, Leo?" "Yes, sir," Leo shouted, nearly dropping his mug in his enthusiasm. "Can we do that, Mom?" Claire felt a pang of uncertainty ripple through her. The idea of routine, of tradition, felt both enchanting and terrifying. She glanced at Julian, who wore an expression of sincere hope, and back at Leo, whose eyes sparkled with excitement. "Let us take it one step at a time," Claire said carefully, her voice firm yet gentle. "We need to see if this becomes a tradition first." "But, come on, you can't say no to hot chocolate," Leo protested, pouting just a bit, his expression mirroring that of a tiny fish that had just lost its way. Julian leaned forward, his gaze steady and warm. "We can definitely try it out. If nothing else, it is an excuse for more chocolate. I am all in, Claire. What do you say?" The sincerity in his voice made her stomach flutter, and for a moment she was tempted to toss caution to the wind. "All right," she said slowly, the words tasting sweet on her tongue. "Let us see how it goes." "Yeah." Leo cheered, his joy infectious as he bounced in his seat. Claire couldn't suppress a smile. Seeing him this happy reminded her of the simple pleasures in life, of the joy that could be found in unexpected moments. As they continued sipping their drinks, Claire felt the conversation flow easily between them. Julian asked Leo about his favorite marine creatures, while Claire marveled at how effortlessly he engaged with her son. "You know, Leo," Julian said, leaning in conspiratorially, "I happen to know a secret about the octopus." "What?" Leo's eyes widened, anticipation dancing in his gaze. "They can change color whenever they want, can you believe that? They read like magic," Julian exclaimed, his enthusiasm drawing Leo further into the conversation. "Wow, that is so cool!" Leo's excitement was palpable, and Claire found herself captivated by Julian's charm. There was something about the way he interacted with Leo that made her heart swell. But then, doubt crept in. Was it fair to let Leo bond with a man she barely knew? What if this was all a fleeting moment, a tiny flicker of joy that would extinguish as quickly as it ignited? "Do you see yourself becoming a marine biologist one day?" Julian asked Leo, his voice playful yet sincere. "I want to," Leo declared, a spark of determination shining in his eyes. "But I also want to be a superhero like you." Claire raised an eyebrow, a teasing smile creeping onto her lips. "A superhero? I thought you wanted to be a scientist." "I can be both," Leo insisted, his little fist pumping in the air. "Of course, the best superheroes are usually scientists," Julian chimed in, his tone encouraging. "They save the world with their brains and their hearts." Leo beamed at the affirmation, and Claire felt a wave of warmth spread through her at the bond forming between them. But then, as she looked at Julian, a pang of uncertainty washed over her. Was she allowing herself to lean too heavily into this unexpected connection? How could she let her guard down when she had been so careful to protect Leo from any disruption? "Do you have any heroes, Claire?" Julian asked suddenly, his curiosity piqued. She hesitated, the question pulling her out of her thoughts. "I don't know that I'd call anyone a hero," she replied cautiously, her voice quieter. "Maybe just people who have made a difference in my life." "Like your son?" he asked, tilting his head slightly, his gaze penetrating. "Absolutely," she said firmly, looking at Leo, who was now lost in a daydream, stirring his hot chocolate with one of the oversized marshmallows. "He asked my reason for everything." Julian nodded, his expression sincere. "That is beautiful. It sounds like you've been through a lot, Claire." She stiffened slightly at his words, feeling the weight of unspoken burdens pressing against her chest. "It's just life," she replied, forcing a smile. "We all have our struggles." "I get that," Julian said quietly, his blue eyes searching hers. "But that doesn't mean you should carry it all alone. You deserve moments of joy too." Her heart ached at his sincerity, and she felt the wall she had built around herself begin to tremble. "Thank you for saying that, but, he coaxed gently, leaning in closer, the distance between them shrinking. "But it's not that simple," Claire finished, her voice barely above a whisper. "Leo deserves stability, and I can't risk introducing too much chaos into his life." The warmth in Julian's gaze didn't waver as he considered her words. "I understand, but what if I told you I am not here to disrupt? I am just trying to be part of a moment to bring a little brightness into a grey day." She bit her lip, caught between the urge to shield herself and the desire to open her heart to possibility. "You don't know my story," she said softly, feeling a mix of vulnerability and defiance. "And I want to learn," Julian urged, his voice earnest. "I am not looking to replace anyone or create chaos. I am just here in this moment with you and Leo." The sincerity in his eyes made her heart flutter, the tension between them palpable. "It's just complicated," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want to hurt him or myself." "Sometimes, Claire, stepping into the unknown is the best way to find what we're really looking for," Julian said, his gaze unwavering. "I am not asking for anything more than today, just a chance to show you both a good time." She felt a swell of emotion rise within her, a mixture of fear and hope. Could she really allow someone like Julian to enter their lives, even temporarily? Just then, Leo piped up, his voice a delightful interruption. "Can we go see the turtles next time, Mom? They were my favorite." "Of course, buddy," Claire replied, her heart warming as she focused on her son. "We'll have a whole turtle adventure." Julian chuckled, and the sound melted some of Claire's tension. "I am all in for turtle adventures, just call me the sidekick." She couldn't help but smile back at him, despite the doubt still swelling in her mind. "Okay, but you better be ready for all the questions Leo will have about them." "I thrive on questions," he said, his tone teasing. "Bring it." For a moment, the weight of the world lifted, and Claire felt lighter, the laughter around them mixing with the warm atmosphere of the cafe. The connection between them deepened, a thread of something promising weaving through their conversation. But as the moment stretched, that familiar caution bubbled back to the surface. Could she truly let go and embrace this connection with Julian? Or would she find herself retracing her steps back to solitude, scared of the risks that came with opening her heart? Leo, oblivious to the emotional storm swelling around them, finished his hot chocolate and beamed at Julian. "You refund, can you come back next time?" Claire's heart raced as she watched Julian, the way his smile reached his eyes. "I'd love to, Leo. I'll be your adventure buddy." "Yeah." Leo cheered again, his joy contagious. Claire felt the corners of her mouth tug upwards, even as uncertainty lingered in her chest. "Okay then," Claire said, looking between the two of them, "adventure bud as it is." As they left the cafe, the rain had finally lifted, leaving behind a fresh scent in the air. The sun peeked through, casting a golden glow over the wet streets, a beautiful reminder of new beginnings. "Let us go," Leo exclaimed, darting ahead, completely unaware of the tension still lingering in Claire's heart. As Julian walked beside Claire, he couldn't ignore the flutter of excitement mingled with the weight of uncertainty hanging in the air. The cafe's warmth had wrapped around them like a comforting embrace, yet stepping back into the world felt stark and cold. "Leo, wait up!" Claire called, her voice mingling with the distant sounds of the bustling street. Julian watched as Leo dashed ahead, leaving him and Claire momentarily alone. "You're good with him," Claire said, breaking the silence. Her gaze lingered on her son, who was spinning in circles, arms outstretched, as if he could fly. "Thanks," Julian replied, feeling a warmth rise at her compliment. "He has got this infectious energy, it is impossible not to smile when he is around." He turned to Claire, a teasing smile on his lips. "And you're not too bad yourself." Claire met his gaze, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "Well, I do try to keep up with him. It is like chasing a tornado sometimes." "I can only imagine," he said, a glint of admiration shining through. "But you handle it so gracefully. You read like a cyclone whisper." She chuckled softly, a hint of warmth creeping into her cheeks. "You flatter me. It is not always graceful, believe me. Sometimes it feels like I am just trying to survive." "Survival is a form of grace, too," Julian said, his tone shifting slightly. There was a depth there, an understanding that made Claire as hot from. Just then, Leo stopped abruptly, eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and wonder as he pointed toward a small park across the street. "Can we play there, Mom, please?" Claire glanced at Julian, whose expression was open and inviting. "What do you think? Should we let him have a few moments in the sun?" "Why not? A little adventure sounds perfect," Julian replied, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "And besides, we could all use a break before the next round of hot chocolate." Claire hesitated for a moment, the protective instincts within her clashing with the desire to let Leo experience joy. Just for a little while, she finally agreed, her tone firm yet playful. But don't let him run off too far. "Deal," Julian said, and he jogged a few steps ahead, calling back to Leo. "Come on, little man, race you to the swings." Leo squealed with delight, dashing forward, and Claire watched them with a mix of affection and apprehension. She felt a warmth spread inside her, yet that familiar caution whispered at the back of her mind. As she followed, Claire found herself walking beside Julian, the air between them crackling with a tension that felt charged. "You were really good with him," she said, wanting to bridge the gap that had grown in her thoughts. "You seem to have a way with kids." "I guess I've had some practice," Julian admitted, a hint of humility in his voice. "I've always loved spending time with my niece and nephew. Kids see the world in such an honest way, it is refreshing." "Very true," Claire agreed, her heart warming a little more. "They have this ability to find joy in the simplest things. I sometimes wish I could see the world through Leo's eyes." Julian paused, turning slightly as if contemplating her words. "Why don't you try? That is what today is about, right? Finding joy in the unexpected?" His gaze held hers, and Claire felt the weight of his sincerity wash over her. "It is not always that easy," she murmured, thoughts swirling about the challenges that lay behind her. "Life has a way of complicating things." "True, but it is those complications that make us appreciate the simple moments," he said softly, the tone of his voice wrapping around her like a warm blanket. Claire felt her heart tug, the vulnerability of his words igniting something within her. "You make it sound so simple," she replied, lightening her tone. "But I am not sure I am ready for that." "Ready for what?" he asked, his expression focused, curiosity dancing in his eyes. "Ready to let someone in," Claire admitted just above a whisper. "It has been a while since I've let anyone close." "Sometimes all it takes is a single step," Julian said, his gaze unwavering. "I am not asking for a commitment, just a chance to share a moment, just like this." The sincerity of his words made her heart race, and Claire struggled with the mix of fear and intrigue that bubbled inside her. "Mom, look at me," Leo called, attempting to climb onto the swing, his small frame wobbling precariously. Claire's breath caught in her throat as she rushed to steady him. "Careful, buddy," she exclaimed, her voice a blend of concern and amusement. Julian stepped beside her, a supportive presence as Leo squealed with laughter when he finally managed to sit. "See, he is a natural," Julian said, leaning slightly closer. "What do you think, Claire? Should I give him a push?" "Just don't let him fly off the swing," Claire teased, trying to focus on the joy of the moment, even as her heart raced at their proximity. "I promise to keep him grounded," Julian replied, a playful grin on his face. As Julian pushed Leo gently, Claire couldn't help but smile at the sight. Leo's laughter rang out, high and carefree, filling the air with pure joy, and for a moment it felt like everything else faded away. Claire leaned against a nearby tree, watching the two of them. "You know, it is moments like these that make everything worth it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Watching him be so carefree." "Exactly," Julian said, stepping back to stand beside her. "There is something magical about seeing how present he is. It reminds us of our own childhood." "And how quickly life can take those moments away," Claire remarked, the weight of her past creeping into her tone. Julian turned to her, concern flickering across his face. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. "Just that life can become complicated. Responsibilities pile up, and sometimes you lose sight of the little things. Complications can consume us if we let them," he said softly, his gaze steady on her. "But they don't have to." A silence settled between them, filled with the laughter of Leo swinging nearby. Claire felt a rush of emotions swelling within her, a mixture of longing and fear. She wanted to lean into this moment to let herself feel the connection they shared, but her heart hesitated. "Do you think it is possible to balance it all?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "To find joy while juggling responsibilities?" Julian considered her question, his brow furrowed slightly in thought. "I think it is essential," he replied slowly. Joy is the fabric weaves through our lives. Finding time for it is what makes everything else worthwhile. Claire's heart raced at his insight, the vulnerability laced in his words reaching deep inside her. "And what if I can find that joy?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then I'll be here to help you. Look," Julian said, his tone sincere, his gaze unwavering. "You don't have to sit alone." Before Claire could respond, Leo shouted from the swing, his voice soaring over the noise of the park. "Mom, can you push me higher?" Claire laughed, the innocence and excitement in Leo's voice pulling her back to the present. "Okay, champ, hold on tight." As she walked over to push him, she felt Julian's presence beside her, an anchor in the storm of her emotions. The simple joy in Leo's laughter began to dissolve some of the walls she had built around herself. "You're natural," Julian encouraged, watching as Claire gently pushed Leo, her heart swelling with pride. The laughter and joy were infectious, and for a moment Claire allowed herself to forget about the complications of life. They continued to take turns pushing Leo, their laughter echoing in the air as the sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over them. Claire's heart danced at the sound of Leo's joy, yet she couldn't escape the flicker of uncertainty in her mind. As they took a break, Leo ran to a nearby sandbox, intent on building a castle. "Can you help me?" he called excitedly. "Of course," Claire replied, kneeling beside him in the sand. Julian joined them, sitting cross-legged in the sand, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "Is this a competition for the best castle?" he asked, scooping up a handful of sand with Leo. "It is now," Leo declared, his enthusiasm infectious. The three of them worked together, laughter and friendly banter filling the air as they built their sandy fortress. Claire found herself laughing, the weight of her worries lifting, even if just for a moment. Yet, as they worked, her mind began to wander again, pondering the questions of her heart. Could she allow Julian to be a part of their lives? Would it be wise to risk the happiness she had fought so hard to build?